here, your playoff edition of the Cisco Morning Huddle with Coach Brent West. I'm Lee Lewis. We're live here at First Financial Bank again on Conrad Hilton in beautiful Cisco, Texas on a glorious fall morning here in Cisco. Just a wonderful day. I'm sure we'll pay for this at some point, but it's really pretty today. Thanks for listening in. If you are close by, please stop in, have some refreshments, coffee and cookies, and say hello to the folks here and thank them for sponsoring the weekly edition of the Cisco Morning Huddle. Last week, the Lobos made the trip to Vernon for the my-district round of the playoffs and picked up a huge win over the Highland Park. It's 53-7 over West Virginia again. Congratulations on the win, the by-district championship. Talk to everyone a little bit about how you guys felt coming out of the game against Highland Park.
Well, we felt by the end of the game, we felt pretty good about it. We struggled the first half with one thing that I was pretty disappointed with, maybe two. We were unable to control the line of scrimmage between the tackles. So, in other words, I had to toss the sweep to move the football, and that was frustrating that we weren't able to run between the tackles. And that's something we've got to get fixed, and that's something we've been pretty good at. And I don't know why last Friday night there was a problem with that, but it forced us to toss the sweep to move the ball. And we had a few issues in the passing game, and part of that was the wind, which we'll talk about in a minute. But defensively, I was very impressed. I thought our secondary played very well. We contained that quarterback. He was pretty greasy. He was one that could get loose, pretty slippery type quarterback, and he had a pretty good arm on him. And they had one big receiver that we, for the most part, covered with Hoover. Hoover had a couple of interceptions on the night. We had two good punt returns, so we were pretty pleased with special teams. But by the end of the game, we felt good about it. I just didn't feel very pleased that first half with that one issue with the running, just the running between the tackles. But overall, pretty good, and we were healthy.
You mentioned the wind. There were some issues dealing with the wind. You never know what you're going to get weather-wise this time of the year. Last week, I think it was in the 30s, and today the highs, I don't know what it's going to be, but it's probably already in the 60s out there. You weren't really happy with the passing game. You have to deal with the wind on occasion, especially this time of the year and going forward, especially if we have to go directions north. How do you try to simulate preparation for that?
Well, I've not done a very good job of that. I'm going to take the blame for it as well. You need to turn around your offense and practice into the wind. And I want to have good practices, and so we practice with the wind. And that was a big factor. And I've made that mistake, and I fixed it this week. We turned around and threw into the wind on several occasions and got a little wind in our face to practice against. But it is, just practicing that. Everything was a little short on Friday night because of the wind. But, to take up for our quarterback, he didn't have many opportunities in practice over the last 11 weeks to practice it. That's been my fault, and I think we fixed it. We've definitely adapted to that. But we also can't use that as an excuse because we know we're going to run into some weather games where we're going to need to complete passes into the wind or on a cold weather day. And that's not just the quarterback being able to do that. That's receivers being able to adjust to a windy ball. And we threw one yesterday. It was a pretty pass, but our receiver was unable to manage what the wind did to it. And it definitely changes where that ball's going to land. And our receivers have to be better at finding ways to adjust and get to the ball and get under it. And we didn't protect real well in the first half. That last drive going in the second quarter, that was a good way to let's work on our 2-minute offense. Let's find a way here to win the game. Let's simulate a fourth quarter win right here. And we were unable to get that done. And I think that's another reason I was so frustrated with. We just lost the game here. If this was a fourth quarter game, we didn't execute. We didn't give our quarterback protection at times, and that part of it was frustrating. But we'll learn and improve that area.
You mentioned the defense. They did have another solid game. Gave up a touchdown with, a minute 20 to go or something with several younger kids in the game. Is it what it is right now, or does it have the potential to be even better than it is?
Well, I certainly hope we can get better, or we're probably not going to keep winning. I think we have to find a way to get better every single week. I think we're at that point in time where we can work on the little things too. Some of the things that you you don't have time or you're so far behind that you can work on those preseason games. And our boys know what we're doing now. Now we can work on just some of the little things, some of the little technical issues. You know, we had a few problems on the Wednesday workout with some fumbles on open air. I mean, that's certainly something that should never, ever happen at this point in time, having just a handoff exchange without even a defense across from us. So we certainly have room to get better, and hopefully we'll use tonight as a reason to get better versus Post, find a way to beat those guys and improve from it.
I don't know if you watched the Raiders and Chiefs last night, but I suspect we won't see the Lobos celebrating a sack behind the quarterback when the Chiefs are trying to go down and get a winning drive. And those two guys who are celebrating get an offsides penalty because they didn't go line back up.
I did not see that, didn't know it happened, but I'm pretty sure I would be pretty furious on the sideline. And our boys don't do that, and that's what makes them special.
They don't. I just thought that was bizarre. A team that was 0-10 in that game, and here they are, got a chance to win, and on the fourth and whatever it was after a sack, they got an offsides penalty that extended another play. Anyway, talk to us about the health of the team going into tonight's game.
Well, we had the stomach bug for Monday and Tuesday. I had a few boys out with that, and of course that's nothing we can do about it. Let it run its course and hope no one else catches it. But as far as I know, everyone woke up healthy this morning. Gibson's got a thigh bruise, didn't practice on Wednesday. Dylan Brunson came in and took his spot in the Mike linebacker position, did fine, but I think we'll see Gibson ready to go tonight. He seemed fine. I did see him this morning, and he was walking on it and acting like he was a lot better.
Good deal. All right, sounds pretty good for tonight. That's the end of our first segment here at First Financial Bank in Cisco. If you're the freshmen, thanks for listening in. Coach West, you and I visited last week about the chances that the teams out of District 2 had against their opponents in the first round, and probably in reality, all of us probably thought that 3 of those games kind of turned out the way they were supposed to turn out, but then there was that one, man, Huddle really put it to Henrietta, and I think that's got everybody scratching their head a little bit. I don't know what all happened in the game for that to occur the way it did. I understand maybe there were some turnovers early, but we know that Huddle has long been a power up on the Plains, and I don't know what you've heard this week, but has there been any explanation, in your opinion, as to what happened in that game?
Well, we did hear early turnovers that ran back into the end zone, and I haven't talked to Myron West, to Henrietta, I haven't talked to anybody at Huddle, but just the word out in the coach's world is that got out of hand pretty quick due to turnovers. But I promise you, I was wrong. I really thought Henrietta could go up and make that ball game. They have such a good, what I consider a good run defense, and I know that's what Huddle does. And I've seen Huddle on tape this year, and they're not any different than they were the first time we saw them in 2002. They were a double tight right, high, running a smash and toss, and an occasional fullback dive and the bootleg. I mean, they look exactly like they did a decade ago on both sides of the ball. They do not try to disguise anything. You know what you're going to get. They do a very good job of it. And a lot of folks, across the area are intimidated by Huddle because they have won so many games, including the state championship not too long ago. I really feel like things fell apart early for Henrietta, and although I've not seen it, haven't even talked to anybody, I was very amazed at the score. In fact, I thought they had a score.
Yeah, we were in the booth with the app and getting updates all the time. Just couldn't believe it. Just in shock that it was the way it was, especially as early as it got out of hand. That brings us to tonight. It's down, as far as District 2 is concerned, it's down to Eastland Cisco left in the playoffs. I'm sure you probably visited with Coach Watkins during the week. From your perspective, what's the feel for the game, and how do you see things going with Coleman tonight for Eastland?
Well, I've seen part of one video. I've got the post-Coleman video, and that was a halftime score. And Coleman is fast. I mean, they have some speed. But I do think that Coleman will struggle stopping an offense such as what Coach Watkins runs. That's just not something they've seen a whole lot of this year. We've seen that over the years, decades of it. Coleman has not seen what a team like Eastland can do in fifth like his offense, and it is very hard to practice. So they've got a big issue trying to stop the things that Eastland does very well. And I just feel like watching Coleman up front, they're going to have a little more difficult time moving the football against a pretty talented defensive line that Eastland puts together. I think you'll see a very good football game. I think Eastland, a healthy Eastland will win this one.
Yeah, I think a lot of people around the area expect it to be pretty tight game. I know Women's got it picked as game of the week, and looking forward to it. We're rooting for the Mavs, want them to do well and come away with a win, and you know, just keep our fingers crossed and see what happens. I'm sure when we get through, we'll be looking to that and see what the outcome of that is. Since we do start a little earlier, while we're on that, I just throw that out. Why the earlier start time? I think I've got an idea why. 7 o'clock as opposed to 7:30.
Probably the biggest, well, it wasn't too far off. You know, Sweetwater's not like we're going to Vernon. I mean, it's not a far trip, so everyone has the opportunity to get to the game. But we never eat out. You know, we very rarely have a sit-down supper after a ball game. I mean, that's just rare. And this gives us an opportunity. The businesses will stay open until about 10 o'clock for you. And if you start at 7:30, it's very rare to find someone that will stay open and let your team come sit down. We hadn't sat down in years. So this gives us that opportunity. And if we do find a way to beat Post tonight, it gives me 30 extra minutes to find a field for Spearman. And right now we're on the list of 3 fields, but you kind of have to be that first guy that says, hey, we're committed to you. Will you let us have your field on Friday, whatever the date might be? So there's several reasons we did it that way, and probably the biggest reason was if we beat Post, I want to be first on that list at the next playing side.
I think you can help me remember this, but I'm pretty sure last year after the state championship, you guys didn't have a sit down meal that night. It sounded like pizza on the bus ride home.
Pizza in the Walmart parking lot, and man, that was the best pizza ever.
So, you know, it's you think state championship, just great things, and then ask what you're having on the way back. We ate pizza in the parking lot, so. But it was a fun pizza, I'm sure. The most tasty pizza ever. Every week, it's win or go home. I saw the interview that Brad had on Big Country homepage this week with your guys. The team has a lot of players back that have played in a lot of big games, but then there's some fresh faces that are sprinkled in there too. How do you keep the guys motivated? How do you keep them from wanting to peek ahead at someone else, which I'm sure they're prone to do at times? But what's your motivation and ability to do that for them?
Well, I'm sure some of that is going on, but during the period, the time that I have influence over would be fifth period right after school. Our practice time has to be totally focused to Post. I mean, it just has to be that way. And the coaches know. I mean, we aren't talking about anybody else in front of our kids. And a little bit of that might go on in the field house because it has to go on. There's other preparation that takes place just in case we win. But fifth period, it's Post. For an hour and a half after school, it's Post. And then you got to hope that your seniors do a very good job on the locker room talk of not speaking about the possible next opponent. And they just hope that kind of bleeds down to your younger ones, that year in and year out that takes place. But some of that is out of my control because they do go home. And you know, sometimes those boys talk about the possible next round. But during the period, after school, it's all the next opponent.
We really haven't done this, and this is maybe a little off topic, but it's really not. Last year's group of seniors was very strong, some kids. How do you compare this group of seniors with that group?
Very similar. You know, it's a very similar group. That group of seniors we had last year were incredible. And what they did best was they showed others how to lead. And I think I'm reaping the benefits of that with this senior class. They had some great people in front of them that showed them this is how it's done. And I've had to do very little, as far as in the dressing room, explaining to a senior, hey, this is the wrong way to do this. this is how you need it. I mean, I haven't had to do that in years, and that's been pretty wonderful. But that group last year did a good job of making my job easier this year.
That's good. That's good to hear. All right, it's time for us to take another break. We're at the end. We're having a great day. But West, tonight's opponent is one that we haven't faced, not only recently, but ever. We went back and looked through the recipe, though, that Post uses is not one that you're not unfamiliar with, though. It would appear that you guys probably have some kind of idea as to what they do. And in your opinion, as you watch them on video, who do they kind of remind you of?
Well, they're a lot like we are. Their favorite play is the toss, smash. They run midline and veer. They run a lot more veer than we do. Similar to a wall, but they're a little more of a traditional formation like what we run. It's not that flex bone. And they run a little 52 look on defense, very similar to what Coach Fambro runs at Eastland, except instead of a 3-4, it is truly more of a 52. They like to slant their little nose and make their nose as a backup running back. He actually gets quite a bit of carries from that backup position, and he is extremely quick. We will have difficulty keeping him from a gap, but they are very similar to us. They really are. They do. They're very well coached. They do a great job teaching their kids what to do, and they fly to the ball. They are not very big. Usually, I'm sitting here telling you how big the opponent is we're playing this weekend. I can't say that with Post, but they are similar to a Lobo football team. You know, they don't look that big. I don't even know how aggressive they are. They run to the football very, very well, and that's what has made them unique and why they're in the playoffs still.
Traveling over to the Mustang Bowl again, would you say that's probably one of your favorite venues to play a playoff game? On a lot of games there.
I do like playing in Sweetwater. That bowl, it's unique. It's a neat place to play, and just the history of us playing there has made that fun. We won those 2 overtime games in 2002 there, probably against 2 teams we maybe shouldn't have even beat, and we found a way to beat those guys. Frame was one of them, and Idalou was one of them. We were pretty big underdogs coming into that. So starting from that point, we'd love to go over there and play, but not just because we've won there. It is a really neat atmosphere for a small town to go, and we can fill those bleachers up, and it gets really loud at the bottom of that. So we're proud to have the opportunity to get to go back.
Yeah, one of those places that you walk down onto the field, and I don't think there's anywhere else that we've done that, is there?
Not that I know of. You've got to watch the scoreboard on the way down. We almost knocked a kid out a few years ago. It was last year. One of my coaches and kids both caught the corner of the scoreboard, and I thought we'd lost them for the game. But it is a unique place. If you're the home team, you get to come up off of their indoor. They've got a small indoor facility there in the field house, and you come up, down into the bowl, and it just that when you come up to the top of that and look down at the game field, and then you start getting chill bumps, you're ready to play.
Pretty neat spot. Going back to the days, maybe even when you were a kid still, before you even got to high school, maybe traveling around with your dad, outside of AT&T Stadium, because that's where everybody wants to get to. But what are some other places you remember playoffs that are pretty special to you?
Well, we always wanted the opportunity to play at Shotwell when I was a kid, and we finally got that my senior year, then lost to Quanah, so it really wasn't a great memory. But when we played, it wasn't as special. I mean, it was, but you walk into a field today and you got that pretty green turf to stare at, and back in the early 80s and late 80s and early 90s, you're staring at dirt. No one really had turf, and it was like, man, everybody had stress fractures in their feet from running on concrete. It wasn't the same type of look and feel that you get today when you walk into a stadium. That the Shotwell was special because we felt like, man, this is a neat concrete stadium. It held a lot of people. We liked going over to Breckenridge and play. We had several playoff games there, and that was a neat environment when I was in school.
A lot of special places. You've made a lot of trips around the state, football-wise. Have you ever just sat down and thought how many different towns you've been to for football games?
No, I haven't. In fact, I forgot even where we played in some of those. That I have to be reminded by some of my assistants what went on that particular playoff game and where we played it. But it is, we've been very fortunate. We've played in some really neat environments. We hope we get to play in quite a few more this year.
Hope so too. Looking forward tonight. Again, I'll remind everyone again, we're not starting at 7:30. The game kicks off at 7. So the pregame will start at 6:30 on KWBY. KATX radio.com is where you want to log in, find the logo link there to click on, and you can listen to the game. Send-off is 3 o'clock today, is that right?
It is. It's at 3 o'clock, and we should be rolling out about 3:50.
Okay, but school gets out regular time. All right. So send-off at 3 from the Race Honda Gym parking lot, and then everybody else will be getting out on time, please. School routes called yesterday, so the buses are going to run as they normally would, I suppose, on Friday. So other than that, everything will be the same. Again, 6:30 pregame on 98.5 KWBY or KATXradio.com. 7 o'clock kickoff. It's the Post-Hannah Lobos. Cisco Lobos tonight in the area round for the championship to move on to the third round of the playoffs. I want to thank everyone here at First Financial Bank for having us. Coach West, thanks again. Remember, if you would like the online edition of this segment, it will be on EasternCountyToday.com. Alright, so of course we're in the house with that. And we'll have that up a little later this afternoon probably, so you can listen in if you missed it or share it with somebody if they missed it. So from Blake behind us back in the studio, Lee Lewis signing off for everybody else. Thanks. Have a great weekend, everyone. All right, thanks.